August is the month most gardeners waste, not because they're lazy, but because nobody told them what's actually possible. The spring garden is winding down, the summer crops are tired, and by the second week of August, most gardeners mentally check out and start waiting for next April. But gardeners who actually understand their seasons know something different. August is one of the best planting months of the entire year, not in spite of the heat, but because of what comes after it. The intense heat is finally starting to ease, which means seeds you plant right now germinate quickly, then mature in September and October when nights are cool and days are shortening. And here's what most people don't realize. Cold doesn't ruin vegetables, it improves them. Crops that would have turned bitter and bolted back in June come out sweet, crisp, and extraordinary once frost touches them. There's one more reason August works so well. Most of the bugs and pests that attack young plants are busiest in the hot summer months. By August, that pressure starts to drop, so the vegetables you plant now have an easier time growing, with far fewer pests bothering them along the way. In this video, we're going through 20 vegetables you can plant right now in August, ranked from impressive to absolutely extraordinary. So, let's get started. Number 1. Kale. Let's start with kale, and August might be the single best month all year to plant it. Here's the first advantage. August's warm soil is actually ideal for getting kale seeds to germinate quickly and seedlings off to a strong, fast start, something that's much harder to do in the cold, slow-to-warm soil of early spring. Then, as the weeks pass and temperatures gradually drop through fall, the second advantage kicks in. Kale actually gets sweeter and tender the colder it gets. There's a natural process happening inside the plant. Once it gets cold, kale converts its stored starches into sugars as a kind of natural antifreeze, and that's exactly what mellows out its bitterness. So an August planting gives you the best of both worlds, a fast, easy start in the warmth, followed by that cold-triggered sweetness later on, meaning kale tastes noticeably better than anything you'd grow in spring. And finally, a lot of the pests that shred kale leaves in early summer, like cabbage worms and aphids, are already winding down their life cycles by the time your fall kale is maturing. Less spraying, less checking under leaves every day, more just letting it grow. To plant kale, sow seeds about a 1/4 inch deep, spacing them 12 to 18 inches apart, or use transplants if you want a faster head start before the weather turns. Keep the soil consistently moist while seedlings establish in that last bit of August warmth. You'll be harvesting outer leaves in 55 to 65 days, and because kale is a cut-and-come-again crop, one August planting can keep feeding you all the way through the first snow in a lot of climates. Number 2. Radishes. If you want a vegetable that proves just how much you can still accomplish in August, radishes are it. This is one of the fastest-growing vegetables that exists, and cooler fall soil actually helps radishes develop that crisp, clean bite instead of the overly sharp, almost spicy flavor they can get when stressed by summer heat. Because radishes mature so quickly, August gives you room to plant multiple successive rounds. One batch every couple weeks right through September, which is a luxury you simply don't have with slower crops. And the good news is, this isn't a crop limited to just one climate. Radishes grow well in zones 2 all the way through 11, so whether you're gardening somewhere cold or somewhere warm, an August or fall planting window will work for you. Direct sow seeds about 1/2 inch deep, spacing them 1 to 2 inches apart. Germination happens fast, typically in just 3 to 7 days, and you'll be harvesting in as little as 21 to 30 days. Keep the soil consistently moist throughout, since inconsistent watering combined with waiting too long to harvest is the main reason radishes turn woody or unpleasantly spicy. One thing worth watching for, if you notice lots of lush green leaves but the actual bulb never swells up, that almost always comes down to too much nitrogen in the soil, often from fresh manure. Radishes don't need heavy nitrogen. They respond much better to phosphorus and potassium, so skip the fresh manure and stick to a balanced, low-nitrogen fertilizer if you're feeding the soil at all. This is a wonderful one to get kids or beginner gardeners involved with, since the results show up almost immediately. Number 3. Broccoli. Now let's move to something a little more particular than radishes, broccoli, which needs more patience but rewards you with one of the best fall harvests of the whole season. It might seem too early to plant broccoli because August is still hot, so why plant broccoli now? The answer is simple. Broccoli takes about 10 to 12 weeks to grow, so you plant it now, and here's how the timing works. In August, start the seeds indoors or in a cool, shaded spot. About 3 to 4 weeks later, once the worst of the summer heat is past, transplant the seedlings outside. Then, by October or November, the plants begin forming their heads just as the weather turns cooler. That's exactly when broccoli grows best, producing larger, tighter heads with a sweeter, better flavor. Give young transplants a spot with a little afternoon shade for their first week or two outside, since they can struggle in intense August sun. Keep the soil consistently moist because uneven watering can cause loose heads or make the plants bolt too early. Once the plants are established, the cool fall weather does most of the work, making broccoli easier to grow and rewarding you with a healthier, more flavorful harvest. Number 4. Beets. Beets are one of the most forgiving root crops you can plant in August, growing well practically coast to coast in zones 2 through 10, which means whether you're up in the colder north or down in the milder south, there's an August or fall window that works for you. Beets planted now mature into the sweetest, most tender roots of the entire year, since cool fall weather concentrates their natural sugars far more than summer heat ever does. Beet seed is actually a small cluster containing several seeds, wrapped in a hard outer coat. Soaking it in water for an hour or two before planting speeds up germination considerably in warm August soil. Sow directly into loose, well-worked soil about ½ an inch deep, and keep that soil consistently moist for the first week or two while the seedlings establish. Because each seed cluster produces multiple sprouts, thinning is essential. Once seedlings are a couple inches tall, thin them to about 3 inches apart, and don't waste the thinnings. The tender baby greens are perfectly edible on their own. Detroit Dark Red is the reliable classic for storage, while Chioggia rewards you with a striking candy-striped interior when sliced open. Most varieties take 50 to 70 days, putting harvest squarely in the sweet spot of early fall. Number 5. Cilantro. If beets reward you with sweetness the longer they sit in the cool fall soil, cilantro rewards you the opposite way by finally giving you the calm, cool conditions it needed all along instead of bolting the second summer heat hits. August planting essentially fixes this for you, since as the month progresses and temperatures ease into September, cilantro grows fuller, leafier, and far more flavorful than anything you'd get from a spring or summer planting. Direct sow seeds about 1/4 to ½ inch deep, spacing plants roughly 6 to 8 inches apart. Cilantro genuinely prefers the cooler conditions ahead, so don't be surprised if your fall planting outperforms your spring one by a wide margin. Give it a spot with full sun, though a little afternoon shade during any lingering warm days early in August will help keep the plant from bolting before it's had a real chance to establish. You can begin snipping fresh leaves in as little as 3 to 4 weeks. And here's some good news if you're worried about wasting a harvest. Cilantro does grow back after cutting, as long as you snip the outer stems and leave the center of the plant intact. So regular harvesting actually encourages the plant to keep producing, rather than setting it back. One interesting thing about cilantro is that not everyone experiences it the same way. If you've got a family member or friend who insists cilantro tastes like soap, that's not just pickiness, it actually comes down to genetics. Some people carry a gene that makes them far more sensitive to certain natural compounds in the leaves, which is exactly what gives it that soapy flavor instead of the fresh, citrusy taste most people enjoy. Because cilantro still tends to bolt fairly quickly once it matures, it's worth sowing a small fresh batch every couple of weeks through early fall to keep a steady, continuous supply on hand for cooking. Vegetable 6. Cauliflower. Cauliflower is broccoli's slightly more particular cousin, but the same fall advantage applies here, and honestly, it applies even stronger. Cauliflower is extremely sensitive to heat stress, and a hot spell during head formation can cause the whole head to turn small, discolored, or ricey instead of forming one solid curd. Planting in August lets your cauliflower mature during stable, cool fall weather, which is exactly the calm environment this plant wants. Start with transplants, since cauliflower needs about 70 to 85 days to mature. Space plants 18 to 24 inches apart, giving them full sun and rich, well-fertilized soil, just like broccoli. Here's a classic trick worth mentioning. Once the head, or curd, starts to form, gather the outer leaves up and tie them loosely over the top with garden twine or a rubber band. This is called blanching, and it keeps the head that beautiful, creamy white color instead of turning yellow or slightly bitter from sun exposure. Fall's gentler sunlight actually makes this step even easier to manage than it is in the harsher light of summer. Number 7. Lettuce. If there's one vegetable that many gardeners give up on too quickly during summer, it is lettuce. But the problem is usually not the crop itself, it is the timing. Lettuce is naturally a cool season vegetable, and August heat can make it seem impossible to grow when the real issue is that the seeds are simply waiting for better conditions. Lettuce seeds struggle to germinate when soil temperatures rise above around 80 degrees, which is why many late summer plantings appear to fail. The seeds are often still alive, they are just temporarily dormant until the soil becomes cooler. A simple trick is to chill the seeds in the refrigerator for a few days before planting, then sow them in the evening when the soil has started losing some of the day's heat. Choose slow bolting varieties like Muir that can handle the transition from summer into fall without turning bitter too quickly. Keep the soil consistently moist during germination because lettuce seedlings have shallow roots and can dry out faster than most vegetables. A light shade cloth during the hottest part of the day can also protect young plants while they get established. Once temperatures begin dropping into the 70s and below, lettuce grows rapidly, producing crisp, sweet heads and tender leaves that taste completely different from the tough, bitter lettuce many people experience in mid-summer. Number 8. Carrots. Carrots planted in August taste better than carrots planted in spring. Cold temperatures in October and November trigger carrots to convert stored starches into sugars. A carrot pulled in late October after a few cold nights is measurably sweeter than the same variety pulled in June. The challenge? Germination in August heat. Carrot seeds sit in the top layer of soil. August heat dries that surface layer fast, sometimes within hours of watering. Seeds dry out before they can sprout. The fix? Lay a piece of burlap directly over the seeded row after sowing. Burlap holds moisture in the surface soil through the heat of the day while still allowing air to circulate. Check underneath every morning. The moment tiny green sprouts appear, remove the burlap immediately so seedlings get full light. Choose Danvers or Nance varieties. Shorter and stockier, they push through average soil without needing the deep, perfectly loose channels that longer varieties require. Number 9. Collards. Few greens handle the unpredictable swing from late summer heat into fall cold as gracefully as collards do, making an August planting an easy, low-stress choice right from the start. Collards are also refreshingly low maintenance for a leafy green. They're more heat and drought tolerant than most greens during their early growth in late summer, and then they settle in and thrive as temperatures drop, giving you a plant that handles both ends of the season with ease. Sow seeds about ½ inch deep, or use transplants for a head start, spacing plants 18 to 24 inches apart, since they grow into fairly large, sprawling plants. Give them full sun and regular, consistent watering while they establish. If you do spot small holes chewed into the leaves, don't worry, that's almost always just minor pest activity from cabbage worms or similar insects, and the leaves are still perfectly safe to eat once you trim away the damaged bits and give them a good rinse. You'll be harvesting outer leaves in about 55 to 75 days, and just like several other greens on this list, collards are a cut-and-come-again crop, so cutting the outer leaves as you need them actually encourages the plant to keep pushing out fresh new growth from the center, rather than slowing it down, often lasting well into late fall and even early winter in milder regions.
Number 10. Spinach. Spinach is genuinely difficult to start once summer heat sets in, but August is exactly the month that quietly fixes that problem for you. Seeds sitting in soil this warm simply refuse to wake up once temperatures cross about 75 degrees, which is why so many late summer spinach plantings seem to fail outright. Gardeners have worked around this for generations with a simple trick. Wrap the seed in a damp paper towel, seal it inside a bag, and tuck it into the refrigerator for about a week. Once tiny white roots appear, plant those started seeds straight into the garden and germination stops being a gamble. The reward for that small extra step is enormous. Spinach is one of the hardiest greens that exists, comfortably surviving temperatures well down into the 20s. In many regions, a fall spinach bed tucked under a simple cover keeps producing straight through winter, then bursts back to life the moment the ground thaws in spring, turning one August planting into a harvest that spans 2 seasons.
Number 11. Cabbage. Cabbage is a classic fall crop, and growing a big, firm head of cabbage genuinely feels like one of the more satisfying wins in the garden. August planting gives cabbage exactly what it wants, a runway of cooling temperatures to mature into rather than the unpredictable heat swings of spring. Start with transplants for an August planting, since cabbage needs 70 to 90 days to mature, and you'll want every one of those days working in your favor before frost. Space plants about 18 to 24 inches apart, and make sure the soil is rich and well fertilized, since cabbage, like broccoli and cauliflower, is a heavy feeder. Water consistently and evenly, because irregular watering, especially a dry spell followed by heavy rain, can cause the heads to split right as they're nearing harvest. This is actually easier to manage in fall than summer, since you're not fighting against intense evaporation from summer heat. Once your cabbage head feels firm when you gently squeeze it, it's ready. The advantage of the August timeline is that cool fall weather also tends to reduce pest pressure from cabbage worms and aphids, giving you a cleaner, healthier head than a summer planting typically produces. Number 12. Green beans. Green beans are technically a warm season crop, but here's the trick that makes August planting genuinely valuable. If you get them in the ground during the very first days of the month, you can squeeze in one final, often incredibly productive harvest before your first frost, using up the last real burst of summer heat that beans need to thrive. Direct sow seeds about an inch deep, spacing them 3 to 4 inches apart. Bush bean varieties are your best choice for an August planting, since they mature faster than pole beans, typically in just 50 to 60 days, which gives you a much better shot at beating the cold. The advantage of this specific planting window is that beans planted in early August often outperform a mid-summer planting because they avoid the peak heat stress that can cause blossoms to drop before they ever set pods. You're catching the tail end of warm weather without the extremes. Number 13. Snap peas. Snap peas are a wonderful August planting because, much like spinach and lettuce, they genuinely prefer cooler weather and tend to struggle, producing fewer pods during summer's peak heat. Planting in August lines their growth right up with the improving conditions of September and October. Direct sow seeds about an inch deep, spacing them 2 to 3 inches apart. If you're growing a climbing variety, set up your trellis at planting time so you're not disturbing the roots once the vines take off. The real advantage of a fall planting is pod quality. Snap peas grown into cooling weather tend to produce sweeter, crisper pods than a summer crop, and they're also less prone to the powdery mildew that often plagues pea plants during hot, humid summer stretches. Cooler, drier fall air genuinely gives you a cleaner, healthier vine. Snap peas typically mature in 60 to 70 days, so an early to mid-August planting timed against your first frost date gives you a strong shot at a full, flavorful harvest right as the weather turns pleasantly cool.
Number 14. Arugula. Arugula is the fastest salad green on this list. Most varieties are ready to harvest in 21 to 25 days. Plant now and eat fresh greens before September ends. The peppery intensity that makes summer arugula overwhelming softens as temperatures drop. Fall arugula has a cleaner, more balanced bite, enough warmth to be interesting, not so much that it takes over the dish. The one habit that determines whether your arugula is pleasant or sharp: harvest small. 2 to 3 inch leaves are mild and nutty. Full-size leaves at 5 or 6 inches are intensely peppery enough to overwhelm most dishes. Cut with scissors an inch above the soil, leave the roots. New leaves come back within 10 to 12 days. Plant one small patch now, another in 2 weeks. 2 plantings give you continuous mild arugula from late August through October.
Number 15. Swiss chard. Swiss chard does something almost no other vegetable does. It thrives in August heat and keeps producing through November frost. While spinach bolts and lettuce struggles, Swiss chard just keeps going. It does not bolt in summer heat. It does not collapse after the first light frosts of fall. It bridges the gap between the 2 seasons without asking anything extra from you. Planted in August and harvest from October through November, in zone 7 and warmer, right into December. One thing most people discover only after growing their own: chard leaves and chard stems cook differently. The leaves wilt in 2 minutes in a hot pan. The thick stems need 4 to 5 more minutes. Separate them when you harvest. Cook stems first, add leaves at the end. Same plant, 2 textures, 1 meal. Bright lights or rainbow chard with stems in deep red, orange, yellow, and white is one of the most visually striking vegetables in any fall garden.
Number 16. Turnips. Turnips have a reputation problem in America, built entirely on large, old, overgrown roots that have gone starchy and sharp. A turnip pulled at golf ball size, 2 inches across, from an August planting maturing in cool October air is a completely different vegetable. Mild, slightly sweet, crisp enough to eat raw. And before the root is even ready, there is a first harvest. Turnip greens, the leafy tops, are edible from 30 days onward, 2 to 3 weeks before the roots reach size. They cook like mustard greens, peppery, tender, and substantial, and are one of the most nutritious greens in the fall garden. 1 planting, 2 crops, first harvest in a month. Hakuri, the Japanese salad turnip, is the variety worth seeking out. Small, smooth, white, and mild enough to eat raw like a radish. Most people who try one fresh from the ground ask where it has been their whole life. Find it at specialty nurseries or through online seed suppliers.
Number 17. Green onions. Green onions, also called scallions, are one of the most beginner-friendly, low-maintenance vegetables you can grow, and August is a great time to start them because they handle the transition from warm to cool weather with almost no trouble at all. Direct sow seeds about 1/4 inch deep, spacing them close together, about 1 inch or 2 apart, since you're harvesting them as slender stalks rather than large bulbs. They germinate reliably in the still warm August soil and then continue growing steadily as temperatures drop. Green onions are ready to harvest in as little as 60 to 70 days, though you can start snipping the tops for a milder, fresh flavor even earlier than that. The real advantage of an August planting is resilience. Green onions tolerate cool weather extremely well and can even survive a light frost without any protection, meaning a single planting can keep providing fresh green onions well into late fall, long after most of your summer crops have finished.
Number 18. Bok Choy. Bok choy is a wonderfully crisp, mild Asian green that's fantastic in stir-fries, soups, or lightly sautéed with garlic, and it genuinely thrives in the cool weather that follows an August planting. Here is the detail most seed packets leave out.
Standard full-size bok choy takes 45 to 60 days. Baby bok choy varieties, specifically toy choy, win-win choy, or any packet labeled baby bok choy, are ready in 30 days. Those are two very different timelines. If you buy a generic bok choy packet expecting a 30-day harvest, you will be waiting 6 weeks instead. Look specifically for baby bok choy or dwarf varieties for the fast fall harvest. Fresh bok choy has a crunch and sweetness that fades within 48 hours of harvest. The grocery store version is rarely fresh enough to show what this vegetable actually is. Growing your own does. For August planting, sow in a spot with afternoon shade and keep the seed bed consistently moist. Once seedlings establish, they grow quickly in the cooling temperatures of fall, at their sweetest in late September and October.
Number 19. Zucchini. Zucchini and summer squash offer the same kind of fresh restart advantage that cucumbers do. If your spring squash plants have slowed down, gotten diseased, or been hit by squash vine borers, which is an extremely common problem by midsummer, an early August planting gives you an entirely new, healthy set of plants and often a genuine second wind of production before the season ends. If you've ever bitten into a surprisingly bitter zucchini, that comes down to natural compounds called cucurbitacins, which spike when the plant is stressed by irregular watering, extreme heat, or fruit left on the vine too long. Keeping the soil evenly moist and picking squash while they're still young and tender is the simplest way to avoid it. Zucchini is impressively fast, typically producing a harvest in just 45 to 55 days, so an early August planting gives you a realistic shot at one more strong flush of squash before your first frost arrives.
Number 20. Cucumbers. Most people think of pickling cucumbers as a specialty crop, something for serious canners, not regular gardeners. Here is why August is actually the ideal time to plant a pickling variety. Pickling cucumbers mature faster than slicing varieties, most in 48 to 55 days. They are smaller, firmer, and hold their texture better after harvest than slicing types. August-planted pickling cucumbers mature in late September and October, after the intense heat that causes bitterness in cucumber skin has passed. The result is crisp, mild fruit with thin skin that makes the best pickles you have ever tasted. And unlike slicing cucumbers that need to be eaten within days, pickles you process in October sit on the shelf through winter and into next year. One August planting of a pickling variety, Boston pickling at 55 days, or Calypso at 50 days, gives you enough cucumbers for several jars of refrigerator pickles or a full canning session before the season closes. Zone timing same as slicing cucumbers. Zone 6 and warmer work reliably through mid-August. Zone 5, first week of August only.